Well, we've had another fuel price hike this morning, and since the 15th of May, which is about 10 odd days ago, we've seen four price hikes, and the hike cumulatively is about 7.5 rupees per litre. So Delhi is paying more than 100 rupees a litre of petrol right now. Mumbai's been paying that for a while. And the immediate question I'm asking, is when will this stop? I mean, are we looking at 130 rupees, 150 rupees, 200 rupees? It's not a ridiculous question anymore. But the reason we're bringing this up in this video is because it's not just about crude oil and it's not just about the rupee. It's also about taxation, the management of our economy, and at the end, a moral question that the government has to answer about how it's going to manage this crisis that is going to affect every single Indian, including you and me. So what is really going on with fuel prices, and how high is it likely to go in India? That's the question we're going to attempt to answer. Before I start, remember, like, share, subscribe, sign up for our membership. If you sign up for our membership, you'll get a bulletin every day, in which we give you the news in the calmest way possible. And I think that I'm starting to believe now that that's my contribution to the universe, is to put out the news in the calmest way possible. We'll also, if you are a member, give you access to a monthly meeting, which is our editorial accountability meeting, where you can ask me as the editor questions about what story we covered, how we covered it, what story we chose not to cover, and it is my obligation to answer your questions as editor. You'll have access to those meetings if you sign up as a member. Okay, let's get started. What is going on with fuel? Now, most people think that the price rise that we're seeing is entirely because of crude oil increase, which is what the government is telling us, but that is not entirely true. If crude goes up, petrol should go up, but when crude has gone down, petrol has not gone down. And that's what we're going to examine. Now, India imports 85, sometimes 88% of its total crude needs, which means that we are deeply dependent on international oil. And we buy that oil in dollars. So there are two variables. One is the price of oil internationally. Two is the rupee dollar currency rate. So obviously, if the rupee gets devalued, you're paying more rupees per barrel of crude. But once you've bought that crude, then what happens? It has to be shipped to India. It has to be insured while it is shipped to India. It has to be refined. It has to be distributed. There's an oil marketing company margin, and there is a dealer margin, and then, of course, there is the government. The governments tax it. The central government taxes through excise duty and state through VAT. So let me put up a breakdown for you. This is Business Standard on the 27th of March, before the prices started going up. This was the breakup of an average liter of petrol. 40 rupees of crude, 5 rupees of refining and freight, 3 rupees of oil company marketing, 20 rupees central government taxes, 25 rupees state government taxes, 4 rupees dealer commission, and a total of 97 rupees a litre. Now, taxes alone were about half or more than half of what you're paying per litre of petrol. So if you're asking how has oil become so expensive, it's because governments are making a fat packet through taxes, because they know that this is a great way to make money. It gets collected at the source. Everybody needs fuel, so it just comes straight in. There's no sort of compliance issue. You're not collecting income tax, all of that. This is the easiest, cleanest way for the government to collect taxes. So it becomes politically important then to ask the questions of, if crude prices are going up, which the government has told us that they are, is the government going to cut its taxes and give us relief? Let's look at the first question we have to answer here. What is happening to everybody? Strait of Hormuz is closed for everybody. Is India being hit higher than everybody else? Yes, because of course we are particularly vulnerable and we import almost all of our oil. To give you a breakup, right? This is according to government data. Before the war started, in January this year, we were paying about $63 a barrel of oil. In March, that went up to $113 a barrel. In April, it was $114. It's eased off slightly in May, but it's still $107, which is hard for us. We consume 5.5 million barrels of crude oil on a daily basis, so that 10 rupees increase will mean about $50 million on our daily import bill. Every single day, the weakening rupee makes that worse. SBI's research has warned that an additional 2 rupee depreciation on the rupee will wipe out any benefit that the current fuel hikes are giving to oil companies. So obviously there is pain coming from overseas. Now, how bad can this get? Let's look at three, and this is speculation at this point, I'm telling you. We're partly prediction, partly speculation. So we look at it in three different scenarios. Best case scenario for India is that the US and Iran actually cut a deal immediately. They call the whole thing off. Shipping resumes through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil cools off below $90 a barrel, which is where we need it to be. The rupee steadies. Oil companies stop taking losses. Fuel goes back to say 90, 97 rupees a litre. And it's still painful for that short period, but it becomes manageable. Medium case scenario is the conflict drags on, which means crude stays above $100 a barrel. Shipping and insurance will remain expensive because of the risks of shipping right now. There's a war on. The rupee will stay under pressure. And Reuters has said that another hike might be on the way. So we've just done hike number 4. We might see hike number 5. So which means that another 2.5 rupees, so 3 rupees, maybe 5 rupees, if oil stays above $100 a barrel for a long part of time. So inflation will start to eat through our economy, and that will start to hurt. Worst case scenario. This is a worst case scenario. And it's an ugly one. The conflict escalates, Hormuz depression worsens, and crude goes up to say $120 a barrel or even higher. The rupee will weaken automatically, and the government does not cut taxes, then we could look at 150 rupees per litre of fuel easily. It does not sound absurd at all to be discussing it at this point. If we reach that point where we are looking at crude actually moving up further, the question that we have to ask, remember I said there's a moral question, who absorbs the pain? And there is a choice here. Should the oil companies absorb the pain? Should the government of India and the state governments absorb the pain? Or should regular, ordinary citizens absorb the pain? Now, let me explain these three categories to you. Oil companies. India has 3 state-run oil companies: Indian Oil, BPCL, HPCL. Now, they posted profits collectively of 77,000 crore rupees in FY26. Take a second. 77,000 crore rupees. That is a 130% jump from the previous year. And that makes the counter argument obvious, because now they're crying, saying, oh my God, we're losing so much money, we have to increase prices, we can't survive. Really? And did you survive last year when you made 77,000 crore rupees or 130% bump up in your profit? I didn't hear any complaining from the citizen who was paying that money, right? So now they're saying they're losing money. They're saying they're losing about 1,000 crore rupees a day. Let's say they lose 1,000 crore rupees a day. Over a year, they will lose 365,000 crore rupees. So when global crude prices collapsed during the pandemic, Indian consumers did not get any sort of proportionate relief. The central excise collections had surged. The central government made 2.23 lakh crore rupees in FY20 during COVID. They made 5 lakh crore rupees during FY22. And over a 3-year period alone, it made 11 lakh crore rupees from fuel taxes. So basically, the 3 state-run oil companies made 1.1 lakh crore rupees in profits, and the central government has made 11 lakh crore rupees during the time that crude oil was low, and the Indian citizen was paying that money without complaining. And now suddenly crude oil has gone up. We're like, oh my God, we have to pass it on. There's nothing to be done. I beg to differ that there is nothing to be done. There is another angle to all of this, which is that from the time, and you'll remember this, we've discussed this, from the time the Russia-Ukraine war started, Europe and America stopped buying oil from Russia. So Russian oil became really cheap because there were sanctions. India went ahead and bought oil from Russia, saying, hey, we should be allowed to buy whatever is cheap in order to offer the best to our citizens. Correct? Great answer. Where is that best that you are offering to your citizens? In the first 9 months of 2023, according to a Reuters estimate, India saved $2.7 billion by buying oil from Russia instead of buying from the Middle East. The comparison that Reuters has made is basically this, that Russian crude at that point was about $525 per metric ton, and Iraqi crude at that point was $556. So there was roughly a $39 per metric ton. So India was saving a lot of money. So there was a $20 to $30 per barrel below the benchmark on Russian crude that you were saving. That, of course, over the 2 years narrowed and it became close to $10 a barrel. But even so, according to that calculation, India saved between $10 billion and $20 billion over the course of 2 years by buying oil from Russia. Where has that money gone is the question. So in rupee terms, we're talking about 1.7 lakh crore rupees plus in import savings. So now let's ask the question of where did that money go? We're likely to have saved, if you just knock off, okay, after that, refining economics, freight, insurance, currency depreciation, taxes, oil company pricing, all of that is still 1 lakh crore rupees that we have saved by buying discounted oil as a country. Where did the money go? And we talked about this in our previous video, where the money has gone in large infrastructure spending, the money has gone in direct transfers of, it depends on whether you call it direct benefit transfers or you call it freebies, that's up to you. It's also gone in large scale defense spending. India has spent a lot of money on defense equipment. All of that money has gone there. And now when the prices have gone up, we're like, oh, we don't have any cushion to actually, absorb any losses. Really, you absorbed the profits quite a bit for several years. So remember, and it brings us now to the taxation problem, which is that government tax is that cushion of 50 rupees per litre of petrol, which means that you can start cutting taxes instead of passing on that pain to the Indian citizen. Petrol and diesel have very carefully been kept outside of GST, and they've been kept outside of GST so that center and state can continue to collect tax on it. Now, the finance minister, Ira Jha, has said the government gave up 1 lakh crore rupees in revenue in order to shield the Indian consumer. And that's probably true, and that's very kind of you. But what happened to all of the money you made when the prices were lower? The other question that comes up when it comes to fiscal management and just running the country better is, why don't we have emergency reserves? Where are the emergency reserves? India has strategic petroleum reserves of roughly 36 to 39 million barrels. This covers about 7 days of direct consumption. The inventories for countries like US or China are much, much higher. India remains very vulnerable, especially because we import almost everything. And so we should be doing a better job of maintaining reserves, because the reserves we maintain right now gives us a cushion of a couple of days. As soon as it runs into weeks, we have pain, which we've been having, and when it runs into months, we now have a macroeconomic crisis that we're currently facing. And I want to tell you why this is important, right? Because this is not about those of us who own cars and are putting petrol in our cars or diesel in our cars. Yes, that hurts. Ethanol blending hurts as well. But the people who are really hurting are the workers of our country. And I'll tell you why. We have, over the last several years, built an economy where all of the jobs that have been created are gig worker jobs, delivery boys, Ola, Uber, bike taxis, this sort of work. Right? People who come to your home to give you a haircut, to give you a massage, to do your electric work, they have to travel. And all travel costs money. So yes, these are the big things that will hurt if the government chooses to pass on the pain and not absorb it. Trucks, buses, agriculture, freight, supply chain, cold storage, food distribution, everything will become more expensive, which means every vegetable, every tomato, every liter of milk will become more expensive. And so for the people who are pinching their household savings to make it actually extend, they will have to stop giving their children milk. They will have to stop buying LPG. They will have to stop buying groceries and buy less vegetables, which means nutrition will get hit. It just has such a massive scale impact on our population. And then, of course, the gig workers, the delivery riders, the cab drivers, the truck operators, the farmers who need diesel to pump water and to run their their tractors, the fisher folk who need the diesel to actually run their boats to go out to sea, small businesses, these are the ones that will really get hit. According to a report in Times of India, gig workers in Bengaluru are already demanding higher payouts. They are saying it's just unstable right now. They cannot make these incomes work. We've seen taxi drivers are asking for higher pay. Auto drivers are asking for higher pay. In fact, remember, they're paying more for CNG and for diesel, but the actual rate at which they can charge the customer has not increased, because that the government is controlling. And the governments will like to control these things because it's a political hot potato. If I have to pay more, I don't like it, it's going to affect the popularity of the government. Now, what the government is saying very clearly is that, oh my God, the world is in a crisis and we have to be patriotic and be willing to pay more. What they are not saying, quite conveniently, is they're not giving us accountability for the money that has been raked in over the last several years uh, by doing all of these various things. And they're not telling us that they have room to cut those taxes and absorb that pain and not pass it on to the poorest member of our society. At a time when we're going through a heat wave, when people are struggling to make ends meet, when inflation is high, at this point to be passing on 7.5 rupees of price increase to the average citizen is, quite frankly, not morally correct. When you absorbed all of the good stuff, you absorbed all of the benefit and the profit, you are passing on the losses to the poorest and the weakest among us. And that is really the question we should be asking our government. We should not be asking, oh, why aren't you buying oil from Russia or Iran? We should be asking, what happened to the money that you saved by buying oil from Russia, which we did over the last couple of years? What happened to the money that you saved during COVID and during all of the years through COVID, and now you charged us extra taxes? Where did that money go, and why haven't you actually maintained responsible reserves of fuel and of a buffer where you can actually absorb this pain instead of passing it on to the citizen who's already paid their due? We've already done the patriotic thing. We've paid the money. This is a question of mismanagement. This is a question of not using the money judiciously and not being prepared for a rainy day, which any responsible person knows you have to do. That is the question to ask. Leave me a comment in the comment section if you believe that the government should be answering these questions right now before they pass on another fuel hike to us in the next couple of days.